I'll be demoing some of our advanced upsert functionality that we've just released in 1.6 and 1.61. But I guess to start off with, I'll kind of zoom out and kind of show like one of the core components of Spice is the data acceleration. And so we can federate queries across different sources, but they can have varying response times. Like querying from GitHub can be slow because you have to page over GitHub's API. Querying from S3 can be, faster, and querying from PostgreSQL can be fastest. But with Spice acceleration, we can make that consistently fast. And so um, that's one way, that's one technique that developers have when building on Spice. But one thing that comes up when creating these accelerations is that they want to enforce data integrity similar to how you would in a database where you can set a primary key. But whenever we're updating that data, we want to make sure that the data in the acceleration behaves as we expect. And we've added some new tools in 1.6 to help do that. So to kind of demonstrate this, I'll show this Spice pod, which is currently connecting to a user's table that I have in PostgreSQL. And I'll actually just show here, it's just a very simple table with 3 columns. I have ID, which is just an integer ID. I have a name, and then I have an updated at column. And so what I would like is to have this reflected in my SpicePod acceleration. And so I've also configured an append mode refresh. So that means that, every 5 seconds I'll check to see if there's new data. And that's based on this updated at timestamp column. So I'll go ahead and run Spice. And we'll see that I've loaded these 10 rows. And if I actually go into Spice and run our Spice SQL, we can do a show tables and then select star from users. And we can see we've got the 10 rows here that we expect. Now, if I make an update, because I haven't configured the primary key, what will happen is even if I updated this in my source to just do IV1, and do save, the updated at column updates automatically. Spice will detect that that column was updated and it'll bring it in. But because it's an append mode refresh, when I go and do a select star from users, I'll see that I get duplicate data here, which is not what I want. I want the data to actually update. And so to configure that, all we need to do is just configure this primary key and then conflict. And so I want the primary key to be the ID. So that's basically if I want to insert a new row and I want to deduplicate data by the ID. And if there is a conflict, then I want to upsert it. So now if I run Spice again and do my select star, I can see I've got the 10 rows as before. And now if I do another update, let's say IV2, when Spice finds that new data, it actually updates it in place. So this is the behavior that I want. This is good, but what happens if your data is not clean? Data is not always the cleanest, and we want to make sure that we kind of keep a clean view within Spice. Currently, if you were to deduplicate data exactly, so let's say that I have a query where I accidentally insert data twice. And so to do that, I'll just get the current timestamp here and then update this thing. And so when I run this query, I'll insert 2 rows into the users table that have the exact same row. And what I want to have happen is basically these users are deduplicated. So if I go back into my SQL Explorer, I can see I've got now duplicated data in my source. And if I go over to Spice, I can see that Spice is erroring, saying that there's a constraint violation because the incoming data, so the data that is coming into Spice, is already violating this uniqueness constraint that I've described that I want through this primary key. And so Spice by default won't handle this. But in 1.6, we've added a new feature where you can now change the upsert to this upsert dedupe. And what Spice will do is we'll actually deduplicate the data on the incoming side to give the behavior that we want. And so if I do this and click save, we can see that Spice is now able to load this data. And if I do my select star again, I can see that I only have 1 row, which is what I want, even though I have duplicate rows on the source side. But what happens if the incoming data is not exactly the same? So I've got this other query here where instead of inserting the same data exactly, I'm inserting basically 2 rows, but the data is different between them. And so if I run this, Spice is going to complain again because these rows are not exactly duplicates. And so the deduplication behavior is not going to handle it. And so we've added another flag here, which is called dedupe by row ID. And what this will do is kind of a last write win semantic where if there's a constraint violation on the ID, so there's multiple rows with the same ID, what Spices will do is it'll just choose one of them. It'll be the last one, basically, for it to win. And so if I save this file, we'll see that Spice is able to load that data again. And now when I run my select star from users, I can see that the Jack2 here won. And so I've only got one data, one row with ID 12, and that is the Jack2, even though in my PostgreSQL I have multiple rows with different data. And so, yeah, so that's a quick overview of some of the new advanced upsert functionality that we added in 1.6.